All right, let's jump right in. When you picture village life, what's the first thing that pops in your head? For most of us, it's probably farming, right? A lone farmer, out in the fields. But here's the thing. That picture is, well, it's incomplete. For millions of people, farming is just one piece of a much bigger, more complex puzzle. So today, we're going to dig into the hidden economics of rural life and find out how people actually make a living.
So take a look at this. This drawing is our window into a village called Kalpatu, right on the coast of Tamil Nadu in India. And if you really look, really look closer, you start to see it's not just about farming. There are people fishing, others are selling vegetables, some are even making bricks. It's not just a village, it's a whole living ecosystem of work.
Yeah, at first glance, it looks pretty bustling, right? Almost idyllic. But that picture raises a huge question. How is everyone actually making a living here? How do they all put food on the table? Is it a level playing field? Let's peel back some of those layers and see what's really going on underneath.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we're going to zoom in and follow the stories of 3 different people who live in Kalpatu. And trust me, their lives are going to show us 3 completely different worlds, 3 different fortunes, all happening in the exact same village. It's fascinating.
So first up, let's meet Thulasi. Now, Thulasi is landless. She owns 0 land, which means her entire income, her entire survival, depends on other people hiring her for work. And she works these long, hard days for about 40 rupees. But listen to what she says. It's really telling. She doesn't stick with her boss because the pay is great. It's not. She's there because the work is dependable. Just that one word, dependable. It tells you everything you need to know about how uncertain her life is.
All right, next up we have Sekar. Now, unlike Thulasi, Sekar does own land. He's a small farmer. But here's the catch. He only has 2 acres. And this is the part that blows my mind. Even with his own land, the crops he grows can only feed his family for about 8 months out of the year. So for those other 4 months, he's got to hustle to find any other work he can just to get by.
And then there's Ramalingam. Remember Thulasi's dependable boss? This is him. Ramalingam is at the complete other end of the spectrum. He's a large landowner. So while Sekar is trying to make a living on 2 acres, Ramalingam has 20 acres of paddy fields. And you can bet he's not out there working the land himself. Nope, he hires people like Thulasi to do all the heavy lifting.
Okay, let's just lay this out side by side so you can really see it. The difference is just stark. You've got Thulasi with 0 land, completely reliant on day labor. Then there's Sekar with his 2 acres, a farmer, but still has to find other jobs. And then you have Ramalingam sitting on 20 acres, not just farming, but running a bunch of other businesses too. It's crystal clear, isn't it? In this village, how much land you own basically dictates your entire life.
But it's not as simple as them just living separate lives at different income levels. Oh no, this is where things get really interesting and complicated. You see, their lives are all tangled up together. It's like this intricate web of dependence, held together by labor, money, and the big one, debt.
To really get how this web works, let's look at a year in Thulasi's life. Farm work, it's not a 9-to-5 year-round gig. It's super seasonal. She's crazy busy during planting and harvesting time. But then, bam, from January all the way to May, the work just vanishes. It completely dries up. So what does she do? How on earth do you survive for almost half a year with no income?
Well, that's the thing. Life doesn't stop just because the farm work does. Emergencies happen. When Thulasi's daughter got sick, there were no savings to fall back on. So what choice did they have? They had to go and borrow money from, you guessed it, Ramalingam. They even had to sell their only cow to pay him back. And right there, their relationship changes completely. He's not just her boss anymore. Now he's her creditor. He holds her debt.
And it's not just Thulasi. Sekar, our small farmer, he's trapped in a cycle of his own. Think about it. To even plant his crops, he has to take out a loan for seeds and fertilizer from a trader. But here's the trap. Part of the deal is that when he harvests his paddy, he's forced to sell it back to the very same trader who gave him the loan. And of course, the trader buys it at a lower price than the open market. It's a setup that makes it almost impossible to ever get ahead.
So who's winning in this system? We'll look no further than Ramalingam. See, he's not just a guy who owns a lot of land. He owns the whole system. He owns the rice mill where farmers like Sekar have to go. He owns the shop that sells the seeds and pesticides they need to buy. He even acts as the moneylender. He's making a profit at every single step of the way.
Okay, so that's the farming world. It's a pretty clear picture of dependence and debt. But is that the whole story of rural life?
Is this cycle just about farming, or does this pattern show up elsewhere? Let's take a little trip beyond the fields and see.
Welcome to Putapet. It's a fishing village, not too far from Kalpatu, where we just were. Here, families like Aruna and Paravalans live their lives by the rhythm of the sea. And you'd think, okay, this has got to be a totally different world from the paddy fields, right?
Well, not exactly. The core problem they face is shockingly similar. See, during the monsoon season, which lasts for about 4 months, the fish are breeding, so you can't go out and fish. And just like with the farm work, you have this long, lean season with no money coming in. So what do? They have to borrow money from traders just to survive. And there it is again, the exact same cycle of debt we saw in the fields.
So what we're seeing here, with Thulasi, with Sekar, with Aruna, these aren't just sad one-off stories. They're not isolated incidents. They're actually a snapshot of a much, much larger pattern. So let's zoom out now from these individual lives and take a look at the bigger picture of rural India.
And this right here, this chart shows you the scale of the imbalance. It's pretty incredible. A whopping 80% of farmers in India are small farmers, just like Sekar, working on tiny plots of land that often aren't enough to live on for the whole year. And that other 20%? Well, those are the Ramalingams of the country. And they control most of the land, and by extension, most of the wealth.
And what about people like Tulusi, the ones with no land at all? The number here is just staggering. Think about this. Nearly 2 out of every 5 families in rural India are agricultural laborers. 2 out of 5. That's almost 40% of households whose entire survival depends on whether or not they can find work on someone else's land each day. So when you put it all together, you get this really clear and kind of heartbreaking picture. Everybody in the village lives under the same sun. They face the same monsoons. They share the same seasons. But because of these huge inequalities in who owns the land and who doesn't, the harvests they reap are wildly different. It really makes you wonder, does it have to be like this? Well, maybe not. It turns out there are other ways of doing things. In a village called Chizami up in Nagaland, the Chakasang community does things differently. They practice this beautiful terrace farming, and while everyone has their own individual fields, they also work together. They form groups, help each other out, and share the workload. It's a totally different model, one built on cooperation instead of dependence.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? We've seen how this whole system of land ownership, seasonal work, and debt can create these traps that are so hard to escape. So it leaves us with this one big final question. In a world that's so often defined by individual struggle and dependence, what would it actually take to change the harvest, not just for a few, but for everyone?